Hello, and welcome to the Strategic Bookkeeper Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to remind you that I'm running a 5-part workshop series called The Blueprint Path to help you start, grow, fix, and scale your bookkeeping practice. Now, I'm running this in early November. It's free. You can attend live and get coaching with me, or you can receive day-by-day videos. My intention is that this is 5 steps, 5 days of high value content, once again, to help you start, grow, fix, and scale. Now, the link to register is in the show notes. You can also find it on my website, the strategicbookkeeper.global, under Work With Me free workshop. This workshop series is designed to help you plan for success and implement what you learn in 2026 and beyond. So whether you're a startup, growing, booked but broken, or scaling, I am going to show you how to start strong, fix what's not working, and scale fast into a thriving practice with raving fan clients, plus the income and lifestyle that you want and deserve. Now, if you know me, you may know that this is what I'm known for, helping bookkeepers to optimize their take-home pay while working less. For example, one of my clients dreamt of a full-time salary while working part-time hours. She's a mum, and she now takes home $140,000 a year, but only works 15 hours a week. Now, another one of my clients went from startup to 200,000 K in revenue in just over a year, and she's now working to scale up from that. You can actually hear her story on episode 125. This is the kind of transformation the Blueprint Path is all about. So I'd love it if you would register and come along so I can help you too. The link to register, once again, will be in the show notes, but also on my website under the Work With Me section under free workshop. In today's episode, I'm sharing my story for relatability and learnings. I'm Jeannie Savage, the Strategic Bookkeeper. I've been in practice for 14 years, but more importantly, 5 years in, I achieved a lifestyle practice. This means I scaled my business, could take my hands off the wheel, and draw a nice 6-figure income while being time rich. And that's what I call my dream on my terms. I was recently awarded Women in Finance Innovator of the Year, recognizing my book, my podcast, my program, and my impact globally. The Strategic Bookkeeper is my life's work, and the opportunity to help bookkeepers globally achieve the income and lifestyle that sets them free absolutely fills my cup. Please do connect with me on socials at the Strategic Bookkeepers Way private Facebook group, or shoot me an email, hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global. Okay, so I'm going to share my story so you can see what you can relate to and also what you can learn from. Now, depending on how well you know me, so have you read my first book or my second book and so on, depends on whether you've ever heard my story. I will tell it a little bit fresh and just from the heart with no prep really, but with a focus on, once again, relatability and what you can learn. So I have been a bookkeeper in practice as at today, September 2025, for 16 years. I still own and operate a bookkeeping practice. It runs pretty much without me. It has to, because I am also the strategic bookkeeper. So these days, my busiest role is through heading up my transformation program, what I call a high touch program. And it is a licensed membership network, also known as a licensed network brand. A little bit like the power of a franchise, but with a licensed network brand. I'll just give you an example. So let's say you run Sally's bookkeeping service. Then if you come through and join my program, you're still Sally's bookkeeping service, but you are joining a network brand advantage. So we give you a whole lot of done for you network brand collateral. We give you what's called the $1 Million Storybook brochure, and we certify you as a certified strategic bookkeeper. And you get all the kind of done for you certification badge, the collateral, the value proposition, the competitive advantage, the copy, the images, and so on. And we come together to form a more competitive network of bookkeepers known as Certified Strategic Bookkeepers. And another way to grasp this network brand that I run is if you look at my podcast called Better in Business Global, which is built to educate entrepreneurs on how to do better in business. Each fortnight on that, I am educating business owners on the value of using a strategic bookkeeper from my network over a bookkeeper. So these kind of licensed membership networks are not new at all. They've been around forever. And that's what I run, a licensed membership network. And that means when you join us, within 2 weeks, you've basically got what would normally take about 10 years and $300,000 or more to build yourself. So in terms of where I am today, I run the transformation program, which is that licensed membership network. And I also have my bookkeeping practice. Now let's go back in time. It was about 16 years ago. I was pregnant. It'd be great if you can see if you can relate. So I decided rather than go back and work for someone else, so I had a long history in all things business. So business operations, finance, all the things. I had a lot of experience with scaling business, but I got to tell you, going into a small business for myself, holy cow, it is so different to being part of a departmentalized big business. So I decided, thinking about what I could do, I'll do bookkeeping. So I got my certificate in bookkeeping. I actually ended up training others in that as I am a trainer and assessor. And off I went and I started out in my practice. I found my first client through the People I Know network. And it's great for you if you're not a startup with no clients. If you've got clients, take a moment to ask yourself, how did you find your first client? Now, my first year as a bookkeeper in practice was definitely a baptism of fire in terms of if you are a startup or early days or you're just starting out, even if you are qualified and certified and you've got a background and experience, running your own bookkeeping practice, serving small businesses, doing everything for them end to end in terms of the bookkeeping, it's a whole different thing. And while we absolutely 100% not negotiable need to show up as a confident, capable professional, when I reflect and I talk to startup and growing bookkeepers, how they feel, it's the last thing we feel in that first year. Let's now, as part of my story, talk about my first 5 years as a bookkeeper in practice. If you read my first book, I call them my fuck up years. And actually, I remember when someone commented, so it must have been in around year 6 or year 7, and they said, you don't seem to work much. You seem to have a really good life. Your business must be doing really, really well. And I said, you know what? It is. The practice is doing really, really well. But honestly, my first 5 years were my fuck up years. And they laughed. And this was another entrepreneur. And he actually said, you know what? I think it's just normal to have fuck up years, right? So now let's look at what you can learn from my fuck up years. When I started out in practice, I absolutely thought that the most important things was 1, my technical ability, number 2, finding clients, and number 3, just growing with that strategy. So the first thing that I didn't know that I was doing wrong, I didn't know that what was required to really build a highly profitable business at scale were all the things. And all those things are actually represented on the bookkeeping practice blueprint 1-pager, which I drop into the show notes every episode. Okay, so you can grab that. So I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have the things that you'll see on that blueprint in my business. I just had my technical skill. I was good at finding new clients. I could recruit staff to help me. I thought standard operating procedures were the answer. That was another mistake I made. They are a piece of the puzzle. They are a part of the jigsaw puzzle, but they are not everything. Now, what I got right and what I got wrong and things that you can learn. So I did with blood, sweat, and tears, and I absolutely spent at least a few $100,000 getting there. I managed to build out probably the bones of a brand, key brand assets, and I managed to build a pipeline of prospects So I could absolutely find new clients. But I really had a broken products and pricing model. I definitely didn't know at the time, but I also didn't have a working financial management model. So that's around job costing, staff and software costs. I was building out my business with a cost of sales around about 50%. So let's say if I was making $100, 50 of that was cost of sales, and then my gross profit was $50. So my gross profit was 50% of revenue, whereas I now know my gross profit must be at least 66% of revenue, which means cost of sales, staff and software needs to be 33% or less, or it's a broken business model and you'll build booked but broken rather than highly profitable scaled. The other mistake that I made during those first 5 or 6 years, and actually I continued to make this mistake to some extent years after that, even after I scaled into a good business that gave me that 6-figure take-home pay and lots of time off, I was making mistakes around the way that I was leading and managing. I was okay at leading, but in terms of managing my staff, I could tend to be a people pleaser, like nice guy manager, and I call it a B leader and a B manager. So I was always having kind of issues around staff. I'm really good at recruitment. I got that right, but I let my staff get away with things that I shouldn't. I wasn't an A leader and an A manager. And I tend to say that means you end up employing a joy and time sucking B team. If you're a B leader and a B manager, you'll end up with a B team. Even if some of your team members are good, you will put up with things that you shouldn't put up with, yo-yos and time wasters, as I say in my first book. So that mistake, even though it sounds small, it's terribly impactful on a business. Through that first 5 or 6 years, I managed to dial in systems around lead generation and around conversion. I lacked the ability to make enough gross profit. I wasn't selling advisory, which I should have been. I had broken products and pricing, so I was charging hourly. And I really didn't have the rest of the strategies around how to create a pipeline dialed in. Although I had created a pipeline, it wasn't completely sustainable. And in fact, in about 2020, so 10 years on around COVID, when the consumer landscape started to really change, I had to change things up again to continue to fill up my pipeline. But basically 5 or 6 years in, so I started my practice in about 2010. In about 2015, I finally revolutionized my products and pricing in the space of about 48 hours. And that allowed me to double my net profits. So then through to about 2016, I finally hit a space where I went beyond booked but broken, and I had a scaled business, and that gave me a 6-figure take-home pay and lots of time off. And it was fantastic because what that meant to me, which is really important. So I am the mum of a special needs child. And in that first 5 years, it was really hard, particularly when he was 2 or 3 to 5 years of age. And my marriage did not survive. And I got really, really sick. So I needed my own financial independence. And just as importantly, I needed time off to get myself well. So what it meant to me when I got through those fuck up years to about 2016 is I could be financially independent. When my husband and I split, I could take care of myself and anyone else that was under my roof. You might be able to relate to what that means because I have my own son, but my stepdaughter stayed with me. My niece ended up living with me. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And I'll always be a woman that loves taking care of anyone under my roof. So I had that income and then I got the time. Now, at that point, I really needed that time because what it meant to me, so I was so sick from stress. I was on cortisone. I was on antibiotics from everything happening in my marriage, from the pressures of a special needs child. And I'm not sure I would have survived. So when I had the time off, I took the best part of 2 years off. The bookkeeping practice just kind of ran without me. I absolutely kept my finger on the pulse, but I only worked a few hours a week. And that allowed me to get myself well physically, mentally, and spiritually. So through about 2017, 2018, I just took time off, got myself well. During those years, I just enjoyed myself. I had my son, mummy to my son, but I went and learnt to Latin dance. I threw myself into Cuban salsa. I've become a very advanced Cuban salsa dancer. So just those beautiful things that kind of really fill our cup physically, mentally, spiritually, and I got myself well. So about 2019, I started to get back into the business and just shake things up. And it was during that time where I felt like I just need a bit more. I've taken enough time off. I've had enough holidays. I've had enough of that stuff. And now I want to get back in and do something, in the workspace, give me some purpose, so to speak. And it was during that time that because I had gone from a place of so sick, so spent, just barely surviving, I don't think I would have survived, to a place of, having got through it and being well, it was that reflection that I just really wanted to help others. Okay. So I wanted to take everything that I'd learned and that I'd built in my own bookkeeping practice and help other women that might be going through similar things to get the money, to get the time that they needed to have choice. So the choice to stay or leave a marriage, the choice to actually spend time on themselves, getting themselves well. And I also really wanted to help other women understand that even though we think that we shouldn't put ourselves first, we should. And I learned to put myself first, okay? And I learned that when we put ourselves first and when we get ourselves well, then we can show up as our best self for the people that we love, for the people we care about. And I learned that when we don't put ourselves first, the worst case scenario is we can die. And it might sound dramatic and it might sound morbid, but if we are not well physically, mentally, spiritually, if we drop dead, we're no use to anyone. So I really had this deep desire to help others. And the way that I decided I wanted to do that was just what I'd learned in my bookkeeping practice. And that is what has led me to the Strategic Bookkeeper today. But in 2019, and this might make sense, I decided if I was going to do that, I needed to sit down and understand how, but I also wanted to up-level my own education and skills as an entrepreneur. So I invested a lot of time and money in really, really good next level education. And I learned a lot. And one of the things that I learned is that I needed to understand every single aspect of my success. And to be honest, I didn't really understand it. I was having success, but I didn't fully understand what was dialed in and what was not dialed in. I understood some of it, but not all of it. And it was put to me that if I didn't understand my own success, that I had a shakeable and breakable business. So I spent the next 3 years learning, understanding, and I tested and I measured and I refined, repeat, all the things that you see on the bookkeeping practice blueprint today. And at the beginning, some of them were just terrible. But through the learn, do mastery cycle, I spent 3 years and I kind of came up with those perfect iterations that I bought into the Strategic Bookkeeper Transformation Program, network, brand, done for you assets. So in 2023, I published my first book, The Strategic Bookkeeper, my secret sauce recipe for how to build a thriving practice by becoming a strategic bookkeeper. And that was like my tell-all book. And I published that along with a companion podcast as my first foray into helping others. And then on the 1st of August, 2023, I opened the doors to my transformation program. So I launched this licensed membership network brand that I head up today, August 1st, 2023. And the foundation of how I help bookkeepers inside that program is 5 big keys. And they're going to sound simple, but they drive the success of my community every day. And they are team, education, assets, implementation, and support. So You heard me in my story share with you that in those first kind of 5 years, I spent a few $100,000 really just fucking up and trying and building things out and getting it right. And in the second few years, I spent another few $100,000 refining and perfecting and learning before I was ever going to teach and coach others. So this is team. You won't win the game without a winning team. Now, education, quite simply, in terms of the 5 big keys that have driven the success of my community and how I do that, team first, then education. The assets is all those network brand assets. So, for example, looking at the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint, the done for you brand, the brochure, the social media, the website, the video sales letter, the product ladder, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay. So I learned in around 2020 and forward the power of digital assets in your business and implementation being coaching and support to apply what you learn and what you build, and then mastermind support, which is our private tribe. So I launched the transformation program, and it's been these 5 big keys that drive our success every day. And after I opened the doors to the program, within a few months of working with my clients, my tribe, as I call them, I developed the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint. And fast forward to 2025, I published my second book, which is called the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint, which is inspired by the Blueprint one-pager that I have talked to you about. And that book is a companion to my first book. So that, my friend, is my story. Today, as I record this podcast, it is the 25th of September, 2025 at the Strategic Bookkeeper. I have got bookkeepers from all over the world. Primarily, we have them in Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, and the UK. And the program, the network brand, everything inside works beautifully for these bookkeepers all over the world. Some of our most raving fan bookkeepers are in America and Canada. And in terms of the impact and the results, I am very, very proud, immensely proud to say that I am achieving what I set out to achieve. So that is to help women to achieve true financial independence and the time that they want, the time in their business. And I call this a thriving practice with delighted clients plus your dream on your terms. And your dream on your terms is not for anyone else to determine for you. And it will change. Okay. What it is when your children are very little is different to what it becomes later on. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a message from a bookkeeper a while ago that's inside my program, and it was about a year or so after she joined us. And she just wanted to give me, most of us are data people. She wanted to give me the data on the results that she got a year or so in. And she had got her practice. So she's a mum with younger kids, and her dream on her terms was a really good full-time salary with part-time hours. So she was able to take home $140,000 in income, so take home pay, a part-time staff member, and work 15 hours a week. And for her, that was her dream on her terms. And she was so, so thrilled. And that is a similar result for me, more than the number. So you'll hear Linda Hall, on episode 125 of our podcast, went from 0 to 200 in about a year, with most, a very high percentage of that being profit, but more than the number. Again, it's your dream on your terms. For me, the financial independence, the time, also the courage and the confidence and the belief in themselves. So I'm immensely proud today to serve bookkeepers and to be getting those results. So that's my story. I'd love to know, did you relate to it? What can you relate to? Are you a mum like me? Do you have neurodiverse children like me? What could you relate to? And what did you learn from? What stage of business are you in? Are you a startup with no clients, growing your client base, booked but broken? Or have you got to where only 10% of bookkeepers ever get, which is that six-figure freedom, a six-figure income, lots of time off. Where are you? Because I have been every one of those archetypes as I've just explained to you. So hopefully you could relate, you could learn, and I will see you in the next episode. Okay, my friend, now it is time to take action. So what are you going to do with what you learned today? The way I see it, you've got two options. You can go it alone to try and save some money, or you can back yourself and go for it and join my tribe. And let me tell you, we are knocking it out of the ballpark. That's not a sales pitch. That is me serving you, dare I say, courageously. To find success, I 100% know you need the mechanics, which is like the keys to the kingdom, but you also need to get your mindset right and be super productive. And these are all things I help you with inside the program. I could go on about this forever because I really want this for you. Have a prosperous week, and I'll see you in the next episode.